Breaking news. Has Lukashenko turned against Putin and refused to invade Ukraine? How did the secret talks in Valdai end? And why did the Minsk dictator rush to Beijing immediately after? What's more, Lukashenko and his son were at Xi Jinping's family dinner. Kolya is now working as his father's translator. Lukashenko's balancing act is falling apart, and what's more, a third leg is emerging: the Kremlin, China, or Ukraine. But whose side will Batka take, and can China influence a Russian offensive from Belarus? Find out right now. Welcome everyone to our channel. And today we're joined by Tatiana Martinova, a Belarusian opposition journalist and founder of the Stop Being Afraid movement. Tatiana, hello.
Yes, greetings.
I'd like to start our conversation with a diplomatic drama, as I'd call it, with a truly ambiguous and intriguing plot. In fact, it's a story that really keeps you guessing. First, Alexander Lukashenko goes to see Putin in Valdai for secret negotiations. Then, right after the talk, he rushes off, swaps a short-haul plane for a long-haul one, and heads to Beijing for an unannounced visit. The Ukrainian Center for Countering Disinformation saw this as a sign that Russia is losing its influence over Lukashenko overall. So tell me, and this is a slightly ironic question, what could Putin have said to Lukashenko in Valdai that was so scary he had to rush to see Xi Jinping right after?
Why do you assume Putin said something scary to him in Valdai, and not that Lukashenko said something scary to Putin in Valdai?
Well, I don't know.
For some reason, everyone's used to the idea that only Putin says scary things. But Lukashenko could have said something scary because he'd been told something scary by a representative of the Ukrainian side, who, under the cover of night, yes, already. Only the lazy haven't commented on the story from that KGB-linked channel about a black Mercedes with Budanov's successor crossing the Ukraine-Belarus border under the cover of night. What's more, everyone confirmed it as if they were all actually there. But that's not what we're interested in, right? We're not going to retell it. It doesn't really matter to us if there was a Mercedes or not. We'll stick to what was in the public domain. And in the public domain, there was Volodymyr Zelensky's interview with Ala Mazur, where he said, if you don't turn it off, we will. That's it. That's it. The repeaters were turned off. But what happened in between? Or before or right after? Did Ivashchenko visit at the same time? God, what's Budanov's successor's name again? Who's heading the Shure?
Ivashchenko, you're right, yes.
It's Ivashchenko, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, well, thank God yesterday's memory pills are still working. Excellent. So even if he did go, and with these controlled leaks into the public domain, well, he must have passed something on, right? And verbally, after this interview, Volodymyr Alexandrovich also asked to clarify for you. Here is like a map with 500 crosses from Madhyar, and here is like a diagram of your air defense system, which you don't even have. And look here, our intelligence, this is also a little gift for you. These are Putin's agents in your inner circle, Alexander Grigorievich. Well, this is just a little gift for you, right? Or maybe something else. Look. We don't know what. We see that after this, Lukashenko urgently announces a long business trip.
Mm-hmm.
And if Moscow, say Valdai, is somewhat understandable, he can fly there at any moment. But in Xi's schedule, there's no meeting with Lukashenko at any moment. And meetings in China are always announced well in advance, sometimes way, way in advance, even if it's a meeting with Trump or some other fairly significant world politician. And then suddenly, out of the blue, his precious little son needs to be presented with a diploma. The loving dad flew off for the diploma presentation. Again, you should pay attention to the small details. Who met him at the plane ramp? He was met at the ramp by the Minister of Education.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, he was at the university partly as part of an educational project. Yeah, it's sort of like mixing apples and oranges or chalk and cheese. Two things that are really quite different from each other, you know? But at the same time, in parallel, there could well have been a story, or perhaps even a narrative, that he wants to talk to Xi one-on-one because he has something to tell him at a family dinner, bypassing all the others, all the other witnesses, including even the interpreter, because now Lukashenko has his own interpreter, the same precious little son, Kolenka. And now within the family circle of Xi Jinping and Lukashenko, they can discuss something not for outside ears. This is a skill, let's say, that Lukashenko can use, because the pivot to Central Asia and to like Southeast Asia, the pivot to China in Belarus didn't start yesterday. And signs in Chinese didn't appear here just yesterday. And the electronic display in Chinese at the airport in Belarus has been there for many, many years. That is, Lukashenko has long been saying that Belarusians and Chinese are one people.
Yeah.
And those Belarusians whom he kicked out of the country in 2020 and put in prison, they need to be replaced by someone, because the country's GDP won't GDP itself. Money won't earn itself, and he needs money to maintain his security forces. And let's be honest, the security forces, the army, the officials, all these parasites, they don't produce anything. They just consume. Accordingly, someone has to earn for them. And that someone who was earning for them, he kicked out half of them. Well, he'll be replacing them apparently with Chinese. But who? Because Belarusians and Chinese are one people. Belarusians learn Chinese. I have some bad news for you. And all the other movements, you see, we can, of course, we're obliged to discuss this with you naturally, because we have to explain to people what to react to, what not to react to, right? Where to look for pills, again, for the nerves here, right? To sleep well. As I say, you should always keep some haloperidol in your medicine cabinet. But after all, from the fact that Lukashenko, after talking with representatives of Ukraine, it doesn't matter, in the office mouth to ear or via some kind of connection, whether Turtle spoke or Lukashenko himself was also present, or just the chairman of the KGB had contacts, right? The Belarusian one, it doesn't matter. So they understand that an ultimatum has been set for them. And Ukraine said, yes, we set an ultimatum. Yes, Zelensky confirmed it. Yes, Budunov confirmed it. Ready, said Madyar.
Well, yeah.
What do we have from this? The relay is turned off. Will it be? Because let's say another condition that Ukraine, the ultimatum that Ukraine gave to Lukashenko, is to turn off the relay and not supply fuel to Russia, right? And something else, let's say, I don't know, whether it concerns the military industrial complex plants, right? The Belarusian ones working for Russia, whether it concerns something else. Well, this is information that falls into the category of state secrets. Neither you nor I know about this. And those who know won't tell us. Everything else is speculation. But an army won't appear in Belarus because of this. We can cry wolf, wolf for a long time, but if these wolves do come from Belarusian territory, they won't be Belarusians. There is no Belarusian army. There are conscripts there, and 10 to 15,000 special operations forces. Well, there are some questions about them too. So accordingly, it will be either Russians or mercenaries. But it seems to me that if there's such a configuration, they'd have to be brought in large numbers. It's not just 10 people. To bring them in, they need to be stationed somewhere. In this sense, I'm saying things are very simple. And to station a troop contingent, they need somewhere to eat and, excuse me. For that, you need large canteens and portable toilets, which aren't at the border. And when we hear now that Lukashenko is building infrastructure on the border, then maybe, yes, it's for that, possibly. Maybe to escalate things. But in any case, even if it's to escalate at any moment, plan A to escalate can become plan B to attack. Should we take this into account? We should. So it's possible. And this was also a condition that Ukraine set for Lukashenko to stop the construction on the border. Maybe Lukashenko is digging in. Maybe he decided to become Hamas and build an underground tunnel on the border with Ukraine. Maybe, hypothetically, anything is possible. Tomorrow, this won't affect us in any way. But in some foreseeable future, if we look ahead strategically, yes, it could happen. And it will always be like this as long as Lukashenko is in power in Belarus, no matter where he is, in China, Valdai, or Indonesia, where he flew after China, taking everyone he could with him. From those from his military and those in the defense industry to the directors of Maz, Belas, and all that business riffraff. The plane tickets were very expensive. According to some reports, it was $6,000 plus, or something like that, to have them taken there. And maybe they'll find some contracts with Indonesia there. You see? But it's all nonsense. I'll explain why. Because the logistical safety margin in Belarus is zero. There can be no investments there a priori. To make some money with some colleagues, well, okay, maybe. Maybe. Well, on some very quick money. meaning, roughly speaking, they bought it, sold it quickly, or moved it to another country. There can be no large-scale projects involving the construction of anything at all. The pharmaceutical plant that Lukashenko is ready and wants to set up with the Chinese, where Belarusian specialists will work, although usually when China builds plants, Chinese specialists work there. That's how they do it. But even if it happens, it will be a disaster for the environment. As always, it's an environmental disaster wherever China goes. China has already entered the concrete industry in Belarus. Goodbye, Volkovisk. Goodbye to everything around Volkovisk. And by the way, goodbye to the concrete industry. Because Belarus has never produced such crap as with that Chinese equipment, which works poorly in the Belarusian climate. I looked quite deeply into some topics back in the day, including the concrete industry, because I did a journalistic investigation on it once, a long time ago. I know what I'm talking about. It's not about money, nor is it about glory. It's about there being one less forest, one less river, and one less settlement left behind. Belarus, in this sense, is of course a catastrophic hostage. And the longer it stays with Lukashenko at the helm, the harder it will be to restore it, to bring it back to the state of a normal country. The more losses there will be, from the environment to human resources, because Belarusians continue to leave. They have nothing to do there. They leave, they take their children, yes, to worse conditions in emigration, if anyone manages to break through into that emigration. But there's no way out, because what's happening inside the country today is a concentration camp where even thinking out loud is forbidden, and everything else is just empty talk. And a staging ground that it could turn into at any moment.
Well, I'd like to go back to your earlier answers, right? For instance, about the family dinner that Xi Jinping invited Lukashenko to. Yeah, because generally in diplomacy, this is like the highest sign of personal trust overall. And plus, Xi Jinping put such an emphasis on supporting the independence of Belarus and its role as a kind of stabilizing factor. And tell me, is Lukashenko now trying to finally shed, as the author of an article in the New Voice publication put it, the role of Putin's parrot and sell to China, and maybe the West, this new status of his as an international mediator, an envoy?
Dove of peace, chirp, chirp. Dove of peace, chirp, chirp. Nothing changes. The flying Orban has flown his last, and now the chirp, chirp dove of peace will chirp its last.
I see. All right.
Your question, it's, like, will I meet the dinosaur when I go out on the street tomorrow or not? 50-50. Either I'll meet one or I won't.
Uh-huh.
Like everything in our lives. Lukashenko has always pretended and still pretends to be a messenger of peace, although in reality he does everything so that this war, for as long as it continues, helps him make money. Lukashenko profits from the war.
Uh-huh, yeah, sure.
He profits from enterprises, yeah, because he doesn't do all this for Putin for free. In Russia, the economy is cooling, as he says. Yeah, it doesn't buy many of the various goods it bought in peacetime, but the economy of Belarus is bursting at the seams, yeah, but it still somehow holds on thanks to these enterprises. He charges triple the price for everything. Now he'll charge triple the price for gasoline. Yeah, for the dear Russians. We kind of want them, but don't forget that the two oil refineries in Belarus, I mean Mosir and Novopolotsk, are 50% of the capacity of the Moscow oil refinery, where our lid was flying.
Uh-huh.
Yes, on one hand, it's not much, but maybe it can solve the problem for Moscow and the Moscow region. And we don't want anyone selling anything to the Russians at all. So maybe we also gave him such an ultimatum. And maybe he came to Vova to say, Vova, I can't. Vova, they'll kill me. Regarding this friendly dinner, yeah, that Xi invited Lukashenko to, well, they've just known each other for a very long time. Let's not downplay the fact that this has indeed always been the case. Between Xi Jinping and Lukashenko, will Xi Jinping get involved on a global scale now because of these phrases of his, like territorial integrity, sovereignty, blah, blah, blah? He said the same thing about us. So what? He says that about everyone. That's China. He sits on the shore and waits for everyone to tear each other apart. And Lukashenko naturally could have gone to him and said that, like, something needs to be done. I don't know. Well, if I don't do this, Vova will kill me. If I do that, Ukraine will kill me. Yeah, so, I mean, either way. Me, the country, it doesn't matter how he phrased it. There's no exact phrasing like dragging in or not dragging in. You can't, it's not possible to drag Lukashenko in or not. Lukashenko is given orders.
Uh-huh.
And as long as one side gives him orders, he basically goes around pretending that it's like his decision. But when the other side, in this case us, gave him an order contradicting Putin's, that's when he got lost. And yeah, he flew to see Xi and then to Indonesia. He's waiting. Lukashenko is a master at stalling for time. Just look at what the Belarusian propaganda is writing. Challenge accepted. We're with our big brother. Yeah, we're entering the war. Yeah, we're great. We're the front line, everything. We're tough guys, but not today. Not today because we still need to purge the fifth column inside the country. Our Chinese comrades will help. And I'm sitting here in Kiev thinking, wait, the fifth column, wasn't that me before? Me, Chikanuskaya, but is there some other fifth column that hasn't been purged? Why don't we know? What kind of competing company is this? A fifth column inside the country.
Uh-huh.
It's not just purged. People there, again, people don't think out loud. They think quietly. They don't gather in groups of more than 3. Who else are you planning to purge there? Oh, so it's just a figure of speech. Why can't we go to war right today? Our fifth column can't get in line, you see? I mean, they're scattering in all directions, and that's it. And that's just how it is, like that. Well, Lukashenko, as he says, yes, of course. Well, Sasha, you must do this, Sasha says to him. So, write today, if you please. And Sasha says, of course, but tomorrow. Because I can't today, I have the sowing season. Or I have the harvest. Or I have to go to Paris on urgent business. And now the fifth column needs to be purged. As soon as we purge them, right away, right away. It's like a game of fools. But then again, Vova knows this too. There's plenty of info on where Sasha lies and where he doesn't, and some things suit Vova perfectly. Because why would he want Ukraine to bomb the hell out of the whole country, meaning Belarus? Then who would bring him shells, the ammo made in Belarusian factories, the components? So there's a big question here. I think there's also a kind of predictable clusterfuck. Yeah, like an installation, maybe a performance everyone's playing along with, acting, scared or something else. But Ukraine just hasn't participated in this performance so sharply before. When over the course of a month, I don't know, I've run out of fingers counting how many times Lukashenko has been warned that it's over. And the last time was yesterday. I think Siersky said we recorded that one repeater started working.
Yes, yes, yes.
And okay, I have a counter question from a girl named Tanechka from the city of Kyiv. Why didn't they turn it off? Well, we promised. If you don't turn it off, we will. So these are already provocations starting. This tension that exists. I understand that Ukraine will hold out until the very end to avoid bombing Belarus.
Of course.
But well,
and besides, Siersky also said in this interview, right, that Putin has definitely set a task for the Russian general staff to like calculate options for an offensive, from the territory of Belarus. But at the same time, Siersky himself doubts that Lukashenko will actually go through with it. And how do you think? Will Lukashenko have enough resources and Chinese support, perhaps, to say a firm no to Putin, specifically on the issue of an invasion of Ukraine from the territory of Belarus?
I told you Lukashenko cannot say no to Putin. That's why he left. He cannot say no to Putin. He can shout in the presence of Gryzlov, don't drag Belarus in. He can do something else like that, but that's all.
Uh-huh.
He really can't do anything else at all. You see, the situation is just like that. Lukashenko actually has what is called a state border with Russia, but in reality, this border does not truly exist. Lukashenko has a country budget that is directly and almost entirely dependent, 100% on Russia. Well, okay, maybe it is more like 90%, but honestly, it does not really matter in the grand scheme of things. Let us not count the so-called Far Arc as something particularly special here. By that, I mean those African countries and nations in Southeast Asia, because their impact is minimal, which ultimately gives him no real agency or independence. Lukashenko, in addition to this, has no army to speak of. That is, it kind of exists, but it also doesn't. Lukashenko had a people who also no longer exist. Because, first of all, a bunch of Russians arrived, bought up a bunch of everything in Belarus. Lukashenko has a security bloc which serves as his main support, although he does not really trust it, honestly. He essentially has nothing in his life that truly depends on him 100%, with the only exception being his little white Spitz dog, who really relies on him for everything. And of course, he's not a young man, which takes a toll on his health, I'm certain of it. In a stressful job. Being a dictator, you see, is a very stressful job.
I'll say.
You live in constant fear of being betrayed or killed. You're never alone in the sense of being by yourself, right? You have constant nightmares, security guards, and so on. Of course, at some point, Lukashenko will croak, that's for sure. And in the very foreseeable future. I mean, the foreseeable future of 10 to 15 years, well, he won't live longer than that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they already have detailed plans in place for that, depending on the specific year of his death. Who exactly will be chosen as the successor? And by what process? How will it all unfold? And what will happen to Kolenka and in what way? But if he were to suddenly drop dead tomorrow, or if he were to get killed tomorrow, then that's when there will be that uncontrollable chaos where many different actors will rush in to fight for power. And here we'll need to save the witnesses because, yes, we still have to investigate Lukashenko's crimes. He knows a lot. And now Kolenka also knows a lot because he's grown up and works as his translator in China.
Mm-hmm.
And so we look at this chessboard where Lukashenko is flying around. I've started from a bit of a distance, like a dove of peace, chirp, chirp, like a simple postman. He's just a postman. He can pass something on to someone. They can come to him as a mediator from Iran, and then he passes it on. The Americans come to him, and he also passes something to someone. But this doesn't play any key role in the region. None at all. First of all, everything depends on Ukraine. And the further we move towards Ukraine's agency, like, for example, the agency that Israel already has, we've been talking about this all these years, we must become a second Israel. We understand that we can't move Russia to another place for now. Just like Israel, there will be a hostile environment around us. Muslim countries that dream of destroying Israel, they won't get rid of Gaza. It will always be there. And so will we. We won't get rid of Russia and Belarus. I'm speaking as a Ukrainian, right? And as a Belarusian, because I'm both. You know how it is? I've been joking lately. I'm with the smart ones and I'm with the beautiful ones. And as a Belarusian woman, I can say that we cannot today, as Belarusians, influence the fact that the country is now taking truly giant strides, not into Putin's embrace, but instead moving forward on its own. She's been with Putin for a long time, yes, since 1994, when the Kremlin installed Lukashenko. Belarus ended up being a part of Russia. Everything else is just talk, again, some little perks, you know. Now it's gradually moving towards China, which means that Belarus is slowly drifting away from it into a very serious vassal-like dependence on China. And no one can do anything about it anymore, because Lukashenko's choices between Moscow and Beijing either stay in Moscow's sphere of influence, like my vassal's vassal is not my vassal, meaning Moscow is in Beijing's sphere and Lukashenko is in Moscow's. Or try to, well, jump over this middle link. The question is, how will Vova Putin look at this? Vova doesn't like it when people jump over him. He really doesn't like it. So here, once again, it really will depend quite a lot on Xi Jinping, and specifically on just how much he is willing to stand up for him in this particular situation. If a clear and unmistakable message comes from Beijing and is sent directly to Moscow, a message that is clear enough for the Chinese, because, you know, they tend to send these kinds of messages in their own unique way. Oh boy, and sometimes it can be hard to interpret exactly what they mean. But if the message is more or less something along the lines of, no, do not touch Sasha, he's my deer, I killed him, or, I mean, he's my cow, we're the ones milking him now, not you, it's over, then that would send a very strong signal. Because obviously transit, the barrier, well, all that, China doesn't want military action there, but we've said this 100 times. I don't even want to dwell on it. Given the recent events, Beijing now needs to send a clear and precise message to Moscow, and perhaps even to Ukraine as well. And then let Sasha know, we have settled it, you can come back. That's how I see the configuration today.
Understood. Well, actually, here's what I wanted to say. As they say, Lukashenko is currently at a critical point in his split, a global kind of split. How it will develop, we will observe further. Tatiana, thank you very much for the interview. It was a great pleasure talking to you. Until our next Zoom meetings.
Likewise. Goodbye.